If you're right, and certainly New Hampshire and South Carolina look like potentially much stronger areas for Nikki Haley than Ron DeSantis, what is the path for Nikki Haley to try and stop the Trump train, which has clearly got off to a rattlingly good start?
Sure. So let's start with the Trump voter, right? So right now, if you poll Trump voters, and the number one reason why folks are getting behind Trump, the most common answer given is, well, he's going to win anyway, right? So I guess we'll just vote for him. You have that 35% core Trump voter, of course, but a lot of folks are just kind of going with him because they assume it's presumptive. It's the fait accompli. It's not. And as soon as I think you shatter that opportunity that Trump has kind of taken advantage of, that it's just my party and I'm running away with it, everyone starts looking at this as a two-person race. You go into a place like Super Tuesday as a two-person race. You know, Trump would, in some of those states, he's not even holding 50%. Well, last time I checked, in a two-person race, if you can't get 50%, you lose. So that's why Trump is attacking Nikki. He's spending all the money.
Is it not in Nikki Haley's interest for Ron DeSantis to stay in as long as possible? And I'll explain what I think that may be the case. Is that Vivek Ramaswamy has pulled out. Most of his votes will probably go now to Trump because he's backed him. If Ron DeSantis was to pull out, then you've got to assume that a large number of his would also move to Trump. So how does that help Nikki Haley if Ron DeSantis pulls out? Tactically, is it not better if he just limps on for a bit?
Yeah, no, look, folks are always trying to judge where voters will go. In the case of Vivek, I think you're absolutely right. Most of those will probably become Trump voters because Vivek is crazy. He's a conspiracy theorist, crazy guy. Most of the Chris Christie voters are very anti-Trump, so most of them are going to galvanize around the candidate most likely to defeat Trump, so that's going to be Nikki Haley. In the case of Ron, it's a little, I don't know what it would be, so I'm not going to presume where his voters would go. The big thing that we're focusing on here in New Hampshire, and I think ultimately will have to happen in South Carolina, is getting out the vote. Right, where Iowa fell really flat, what Trump get, like 56,000 votes? 56,000 people out of over 3 million in Iowa dictated that Trump was going to be the nominee. Whereas in New Hampshire, again, we'll have a much higher voter turnout. So the higher the voter turnout, the more likely Nikki is to defeat Trump, right? Because every new vote that comes to the table is more likely to be with Nikki. So I don't think they're worrying more about the 4 or 5% of the DeSantis voters and where they go. It's about driving another 10 or 20% higher on the voter turnout, knowing that would definitely help. That never fares well for the incumbent. And that's effectively what Trump is. He's effectively an incumbent in this race as the former president. He almost tries to convince people he wasn't already president and didn't already get a lot of stuff not done. But that's the situation. So that's really where we're focusing a lot of our efforts.
I met Nikki Haley for the first time actually in this building. We were both on Hannity last time I was in New York a couple of months ago. And we had a nice long conversation. I was very impressed. She has a very nice way about her. She's very engaging, very smart, very charming. She hasn't given me an interview yet, so maybe you could put a good word in for me after this, Governor. I'd appreciate it. But we'll move on from that terrible snub so far. But I was impressed by her. But a lot of people on the Republican side, who are not necessarily her biggest fans, say that she's too liberal. She's not a proper conservative, not a real Republican. You know her very well. What do you say to those people?
Too liberal. She was the Tea Party conservative candidate when she became governor of South Carolina in 2010 and then again in 2014. So no, she's as conservative as they come. And her credentials as being fiscally conservative, much more fiscally conservative than Trump. Trump's a disaster when it comes to fiscal conservatism. Individual liberties, which we pride a lot here in New Hampshire, right? That the individual comes first, not big government solutions, which Trump tries to do out of D.C. That doesn't fare too well with conservatives in the live free or die state, to be sure. Decentralizing the Department of Education. So again, states, localities, individuals, parents have more control over what's happening in the classroom. Trump didn't do any of that, right? So she brings these amazing conservative credentials. And the best one is she gets stuff done, right? Regardless of where you are on policy, she gets stuff done. She has a record of doing it, balancing budgets, all that sort of thing, bringing health care reform. I was promised health care reform from Donald Trump. We didn't get it, right? She takes these challenges on and she actually solves things. So at the end of the day, that's what conservatives want. They want government that actually moves forward, decentralizes, and again, lets the individual come first.
As you head towards New Hampshire, is she going to take the gloves off now and start pounding Trump? Because it seems to me the only way anybody is going to actually take Trump down is to start pounding him properly. And there's obviously lots of ammunition you could go for, but rather like every other candidate, it looks like Nikki Haley has held off doing this because she's worried about aggravating his very loyal supporters.
No, so a couple things there. So let's look at the Chris Christie. Chris Christie threw everything and the kitchen sink at Donald Trump and never got past 13%. So to say that we're just going to hit Trump harder and that will work, Chris tried it. It was an interesting strategy. One state strategy clearly did not work. And it again, you kind of hit a cap there. Nikki doesn't overthink it. She is who she is. She'll call Trump out on January 6th and on election denial and all this stuff. But good candidates talk about what they're bringing to the table, not just what the other guy isn't and what the other guy hasn't done, right? Leave it to surrogates like us to complain about Trump. Nikki's all about herself, and she's happy to hit him. She's worked very closely with him for many, many years, right? But she understands that she wants to talk about what she's going to do to fix this country, the solutions she's going to bring, her experience internationally, unmatched. Trump can't match her experience internationally.
Okay.
He showed up at the meetings taking all the policy decisions from her and the Department of State. What she's done working with legislatures. So this is an amazing candidate with amazing credentials. And as you say, most importantly, she's just likable. She's super genuine.
She's definitely likable. But what if she's so likable that she gets flatlined in New Hampshire, Trump barrels through and has another massive victory? Can you continue past that if that was to happen?
Sure. Well, look, going to our home state of South Carolina, there's huge opportunities there. So in the first three states of Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, there's only one person that has to win all three, and that's Trump. He's the only one that has set the expectations that he's going to run away with it in all three states. So anything different than that, whether it's beating him or coming in a close second, that challenges that whole narrative, that presumption that's out there. So whether it happens in New Hampshire, I think it will, New Hampshire and South Carolina, that builds momentum in that two-person race, then you hit Super Tuesday, right? With a one-on-one race going into Super Tuesday, I think anything's on the table.
Okay, and if you would tell Nikki Haley that I'm here tomorrow, we have a slot. If she fancies an interview, we'd happily take it. Governor Sununu, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you, buddy.